So we were talking about the recovery properties which we have in the highly available systems,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
we have the recovery at multiple levels. We have the recovery at the workflow level, we have the recovery at the session level, and we have the recovery of the services as well. And for all of these, a state of operation file is saved. Okay, so there
Yes.
is a state of operation file for the integration service also. There is a state of operation file for the workflows, and there is a state of operation file for the session as well. So where these files are stored, so basically it's not always a file. So the state of operation information is sometimes in files and sometimes in some kind of basic information is there in the database tables as well, right?
Yes. Yes.
So Informatica automatically creates some recovery tables, which is used for session recovery. For mostly other recovery information are all stored in a file, right?
Fine.
So I think I showed you the default location in for shared storage, wherein
Storage.
all the recovery files are stored, right?
Stored.
So
Yes.
recovery will be enabled when you recovery complete recovery will be done when you enable the workflow level and the session level recovery both. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Let us say that you have enabled the workflow level recovery. You want to recover that certain job which has failed. So you have enabled the workflow level recovery, but you forgot to enable the, or you did not enable the session level recovery. Then that won't work. That means you
Yes.
are not achieving the complete high availability, or you are not achieving the complete highly available recovery.
Yes. Okay.
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 So these things we need to take care of, that when we are actually saying that our system is highly available, and when we are actually setting up our recovery systems, that recovery has to be at the at all the levels.
Okay.
Okay, so my
Okay.
services should also recover, integration services should also recover, and when the integration services have recovered, if there is a failure in any of my workflows, they should also recover. If there is a
Cover.
failure in any of my sessions, they should also recover. So
Yes.
recovery should be end to end, right? So if I enable my workflow for recovery, that means my workflow recovery information will be saved. Workflow
Yes.
recovery means inside the workflow, whatever tasks are there, if I have 10
Every.
tasks, and the status of each of the task will be saved. Which task has completed, which task has not completed, which task was being run by which process. Okay, so these informations will be saved in the workflow state of operation.
Yes. Okay.
But session state of operation stores more granular details. Inside the session, a mapping is running. That means mapping is loading into some table, right?
Yes.
So in a session state of operation, more detailed information, recovery information will be there. That means which row was getting processed, how many rows have already completed processing, which row was there was a failure while the processing of which row, all these details, right? So uh, where there was a failure and which transformation was running when there was a failure. So all these slight detailed information will also be saved in the session state of operation.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
because that has to store all the recovery information for the session. So that's why all these details will be saved there. That is the session state of operation. The service state of operation. Service state of operation means we are basically the service level recovery means we are talking about the integration service. Okay.
Okay.
Repository service, integration service, both. So the service manager will have to store the information of these two services also. What kind of information? Like when the if the integration service has gone down, if it if if we have enabled the high availability, automatically the recovery information, state of operation file details for that service will be saved somewhere in some location. Okay,
Okay.
so this is only for the client. The path which you saw here, which I showed you,
Mm-hmm.
uh, in file
Infrastructure.
shared storage. This is for the
Storage.
client
Okay.
related to workflow and session. Okay,
Session. Mm-hmm.
service level integration service or repository service level recovery files are not stored here. They will be in the server path somewhere.
Okay.
Okay, so this is also server path, but this is only related to the tool. All the recovery information related to the tool. Now, recovery information related to your services will be stored somewhere else. But
Okay.
your recovery information related to services means when there was a failure, it will store informations like when there was a failure, then that service was running in which node, what kind of requests were in queue, what kind of requests were in queue which were to be used by that service, how many requests it was already processing, how many requests were already pending, what was the status of the request which this particular service was processing. All this information needs to be stored somewhere, so it's stored in the recovery state of operation. Okay, now why this is needed? Because when this service comes up, when we are saying it is highly available, that means nothing is manual. So when this service comes up, it will resume from that point of failure, right? So let us say there is an integration service which is running in node 1 and it has 6 requests in its name. Okay, 3 were in progress when it failed, when the service went down, 3 were in progress and 3 were pending. So that when that service will come up after 5 minutes, when it resumes, or let us say immediately after a failover, if that service resumes in some other node, in some backup node, then this service will have to process those requests which were failed or which were pending. So that information will come from the recovery file. So the service manager will pick up that information from the recovery file. When the service will come up, service manager will check the recovery data which has the state of operation which has been saved for this service, and it will come to know, okay, this service which had failed over was actually processing 6 requests, 3 were in progress and 3 were pending. So it will start processing those requests. Okay, like that the state of operation of the service works.
Okay.
Okay. And also other things like for let me tell you what is the state of operation. Basically, we are talking about the state of operation, right? So
Yes.
let me write it down for your reference. Okay, so state of operation for as I told you, what is it for? This is state of operation is for the repository service, integration service. Okay, so
Okay.
the state of operation of the repository service, what things it will store? Now, if a repository service fails over, goes down and comes up again in another node, then what all things it will recover? Repository logs. I'm giving you some examples. Okay.
Okay.
If you talk about the recovery of a repository service, it will recover your repository logs. Which user were having logs? Those logs need to be deleted, right? Auto deleted or auto killed. Because if some user was trying to access a repository service, suddenly that repository service failed over, it went down, and since the system is highly available, it started in another node. Now when it started, this information should be there somewhere, that which locks were occupied and by which user and what kind of lock it was, read lock, write lock, what lock. So that information, complete detail of the repository locks is retrieved, and after retrieval from there it will progress, it will start working. Okay. And what were the requests in progress? Whichever requests were in progress, those will also be addressed. So the state of operation file or the state of operation information for a repository service is taking care of these information, and there are many more, like more informations are there, which when I'm talking about repository lock, that means it also keeps the information about the users who have acquired the lock or the services who have acquired that lock. Okay, and the type of lock, all information about the locking. Okay, and the request in progress means which requests were there in line or in queue, who had requested it, all the details. Okay, everything will be there in the recovery state of operation information. From there it will pull it and recover. That's it. So for achieving the high availability, state of operation is very important. Now, similarly, for if we talk from an integration service point of view, because see, I told you recovery can be done just like you're restarting. I when I was talking about the high availability, I told you, right? High availability
Yes.
is possible. Where did I tell you that this is possible for? I mentioned some services, right? For which services it is possible, kind of thing.
Here in the high availability tab. Grids concept.
No, where is it? I noted it, right? I don't see
I
it.
think in
I don't know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So what are
yes,
the service supported for restart? These services are supported for restart, right? Similarly,
yes.
for recovery also, your application services and your clients, workflow manager and sorry, your workflow and session. These are supported for recovery. So repository service, you now know that if we talk about recovery of a repository service, that means what all information is retrieved, lock information, request information, those information. So when we talk about recovery of an integration service, so when an integration service is failing over and it has to be recovered automatically by the system, by the service manager, then what things it will take care of? Means what is there in the state of operation file or state of operation? See, I'll not use the term file always. State of operation can be a file or can be in a relational database format also. That's why I'll just say state of operation. Okay. So
Okay.
for the recovery of the integration service, the state of operation will include details like clients who were connected, which all clients were connected to that service that time when it failed. Okay.
Okay.
Requests priority. So priority of the requests which are being handled. Okay. So this generally means that when a certain number of requests, I'll tell you, when I'll talk about the load balancing, there I'll uh, talk about a lot of things. There's a lot of concepts to understand load balancing. So after this, we'll go into load balancing. Before that, just let me clarify this, that when your integration service is failing over, we
Mm-hmm.
talk about the recovery or the to make it highly available, it should be able to recovery. So priority of the requests plays an important part. So if multiple requests are pending in that integration service, each request has a priority number. They are in the queue, right? So each request has a
Yes.
priority assigned. How
Yes.
it is done internally? For that, we have to understand the concept of load balancer. That is there in our course, so we'll understand that.
Okay.
So these details are captured in the state of operation. Okay. Now, this is fine that we talk about the request priority and the clients connected, all this information is stored for the integration service. One more thing is there, what all requests are there in queue? That also needs to be mentioned. All the requests in queue, their priority, which all clients are connected, okay, which node it was running in, all details are captured. So in the recovery information, in the state of operation, okay?
Okay.
So, and you know about the state of operation of workflow. In a workflow state of operation, we capture the complete details. Status of
Great.
tasks,
Mm-hmm.
completed and pending both, which are pending, which were running. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Resource, usage of tasks, what memory was assigned to which task, that is also captured, because next time when this workflow will be resumed, right? So that amount of resource allocation will be done, right? So
Right.
this is basically uh, this should be a part of the integration service process recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Resource usage, what kind of resource should be assigned, and that detail will be here. Okay, so let it be here in the workflow, because when it is storing the details of the task, it also stores how much of memory was allocated. So that's why I've written the resource usage. Okay,
Okay.
now if I talk about session, so session state of operation, what all details the session state of operation contains. Session state of operation contains other details like your status of, or basically the information about the rows committed and not committed. Okay, rows committed successfully, how many have been committed and how many are pending. And it contains the details about detail of transformations. Okay, pending rows to process, pending transformations. Okay, all this information. There are many more details. Like I cannot cover it here completely, because if you talk about a session state of operation, there will be many things. Which transformation, which row, in a
Okay.
particular transformation, where did it fail? All this
Okay.
information will be there.
Okay.
Okay, and you know the path where it is saved, right? So I showed you the path. State
Yes.
of operation file path is this.
Storage.
Yeah, fine. And we also saw what do you mean by a manual recovery and automatic recovery. And see, at the integration service level and repository service, in the application service level, recovery is already enabled. We already have the recovery. If you say a highly available system, and you set up a backup node, that means if you set up a highly available system, then
Mhm.
your services will automatically will follow the recovery process, right?
Right. Okay.
So high availability, those three parameters: resilience, restarting, and recovery. These three will be
Right.
automatically followed by the services if you set up the high availability, right? But for recovering
Yes.
the workflows and tasks, since the workflow and tasks are the client objects, for recovering the workflows and the tasks, you have to explicitly set them in the I showed you where to set the workflow recovery and where to set the session recovery, right? So there you have to explicitly set it. Okay, and
Okay.
the recovery works when your resources or recovery file is available, your state of operation is available, then only your recovery works. If your state of operation is not available, it won't be able to recover.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
okay, let me open the database once.
Okay.
I don't remember the name of the tables, but I can see one table here, PM recovery. Let me
Okay.
go to one path.
Mhm.
Informatica 10.2 server bin. Okay, so you can see four tables here. You can see the create scripts, right? Table creation script for four tables: PM recovery, PM target run ID, PM rec state, and rec state is recovery state, target run ID, PM recovery, three tables, and
Recovery.
then indexes, three tables: PM rec state, run ID, and three tables. Okay, I'll just list them out for you so that you
Okay.
don't have to search. So this also contains the state of operation, some details,
Okay.
basic details. Okay, so how are this table created? Why do we have this create script? Because Informatica automatically uses this create script, and when you set it for enable recovery, right?
Yes.
Like when you enable your recovery at the session level,
Session
it will
level.
automatically create it. Yeah, it will automatically create it in your whatever in your source database, whichever you will be your source database, right?
Yes.
Let me see. I think source or target database it will create, not source. Let me see in the target scheme also. If we have enabled, it will create database.
Ajay cannot hear you.
Yeah, I'm trying to connect.
Okay. Okay. I thought again there is some audio issue.
No, no. One second. Okay, so in the target connection, whichever will be your target connection, there these three tables will be created automatically. Okay, so these are the three recovery tables which are created automatically when you have the session state of operation enabled. That means your session recovery if you're enabling. So if you go into PM recovery, okay, you can see this in the PM
Mm-hmm.
recovery. We don't have the details, but what kind of field it has, you can see the workflow ID, the workflow run ID, the task instance ID, partition ID, all this information, checkpoint. It will be an checkpoint number will be there, row count, how many rows have been processed. That will be. So the basic recovery information will be saved here. PM target run ID is last target run ID. Okay. So file
Okay.
that target was, this is to track whether that target, whether a particular target was loaded properly or not. The target run ID will be saved. Last target, which was when did it fail, which target was getting loaded, because it loads one target at a time in one mapping, right? So it will have the target run ID.
Okay.
So when it recovers, it will pick the information from here, tables, and then it will compare it with the state of operation files, which I showed you. There it will compare and see which data has to be recovered and recover it accordingly. Now the actual recovery of the jobs also we tried doing it, although
Yes.
1 second. Yeah. So the recovery we tried doing it, although we didn't have the complete access. We saw that we enabled the workflow state of recovery, state of operation, workflow recovery, and we enabled the session recovery, right? So when the workflow went into a suspended mode, we were able to recover. Till the time it's not in the suspended mode, you are not able to recover. So recovery will be possible only when you have the recovery file, recovery data. If you don't have recovery data, Informatica will simply show you an error message saying that no recovery data available, cannot recover. When will the recovery data get created? When you are enabling whatever you're trying to recover, whether session or workflow, whichever thing you're trying to recover, you have to enable the recovery first, automatic recovery, HA recovery. And in the session level, you have to select the option resume from last checkpoint. And
Mm-hmm.
once you have enabled the recovery, it will save the recovery information if it has been suspended. Okay, if that session goes into suspended state, then you'll be able to recover it. Or it
Okay.
will do an automatic recovery. Now, for automatic recovery, you need to have an HA license. And if you're having the HA license, that workflow properties is there where it is number of recovery attempts, restart attempts has been configured there, right? So recovery attempts, basically, it will try restarting your session up till that number of time. And still, if it fails, that means the automatic recovery will take place.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is your overall recovery process of your different objects. Okay,
Okay.
now your this we spoke about the power center, right? So we spoke about the power center integration service and the power center repository service. Now, what if I tell you what about the data quality services? What about the data integration service and the MRS, model repository service? What about these? Will they get recovered? Means will they also have the state of operation, or does the recovery also happen for them? The answer is yes. Recovery also happens for, I'll
Data
just add
quality.
some rows here and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, your data quality services. I'll just add some rows and add them here because I have mentioned the application services at the top, right? So I was talking about data integration service. That is your DIS and your Model repository service, which is your MRS, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I think we are, so for this also state of operation is saved and recovery is done as a part of high availability. Your systems become highly available. So any questions here before proceeding to the next topic?
No, Ajay. I'm good.
It's fine. So now high availability from end to end, from overall perspective, all the three parameters of high availability, resilience, restart, recovery, how it's done at different levels. I hope that's clear. At least
Yes.
now many things will depend how you work with these on real time. You'll not get a chance to work with all of these in real time, that's for sure, unless and until you
Okay.
work for a really long time as an admin. Yeah,
Okay.
because when you configure, the only thing you'll do is configuration. That means you'll set up backups. You'll just set up backup nodes for your services when you're setting up the system. That's it. That much you'll do. Internally, what is
Okay.
happening, you will never come to know on unless and until
Yes.
there are failures and all those stuff. So if there are failures, you will see that if the HA is there, then automatically services are shifting,
Automatic.
running. Internally, what is happening, that you won't come to know these details unless and until you go through these
Confirm.
kind of trainings, right? So because this is, yeah, this is a conceptual thing. So even
Okay.
in real time, you won't get to work on these things unless and until you get into something where you have to debug and get into the root cause of some issues. There you will
Okay.
read and come to know about these things. But this forms the very basic of Informatica administration. That is your high availability. I hope we can proceed, right?
Yes.
So by completing this high availability, now you should be able to set up a highly available system. Okay.
Yes.
So I'll
Okay.
tell you about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you about how to configure high. That's what this I'm going to tell you. So after completing this high availability, you should be
Mm-hmm.
able to configure a highly available system using admin console and command lines. Okay.
Okay.
Second,
Okay.
you should have knowledge about all the three parameters of Informatica's high availability, resilience, restart, recovery, how resilience works with the services, how resilience works with the nodes, and how resilience works with the client. Okay.
Client. Okay.
So I think anytime if you come back here to these sheets, it will be a good summary and you have to go through these videos again. Now,
Yes. Thank you.
restart. So
Mm-hmm.
you should be able to know that how the restarting of the services works. Although restart, nothing much to go into detail, but just the services restart in fails over in another node. And recovery, yes, recovery has some concepts into it because we have the state of operations at the different levels. So you should have this idea clear when you talk about the high availability of Informatica systems. All these three parameters should work together. A completely highly available Informatica system means it should be resilient, it should be restarting or it should fail over, and it should recover
Cover.
automatically, right?
Yes. Yes.
Now, if you are configuring a highly available system, then what you should do? Let me just note it down for you. So configuration should be at the domain level. Okay, so domain level configuration means, what do you mean by a domain level configuration of the highly available systems, high availability? Can you tell me? I think we have already covered it. Still, I am doing a recap. So if
Metadata.
I talk about
No.
domain level,
Security.
no, domain level
No.
configuration of
It's
high
yeah.
availability, what properties you have at the domain tab for high
Resilience
availability?
or
Yeah.
res-
So you can set the resilience and the restart properties at the
restart
domain level.
properties.
Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think you can recall what we discussed in the domain tab. We had these properties. So that's what you have to set these properties and at least check it when you are configuring highly available system. It will be already taking the default properties. So you have to go back
Yes.
to the concept of resilience. That means what do you actually want? Means you know that when
We
you
need
are
to
not
set
giving
up the
anything
backup
at the
now.
integration service level. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
backup nodes that I'm coming at the node level. I'm now at the
Okay.
domain level. So at the domain level, what you will configure is these properties.
Resilience timeout, limit on resilience timeout, restart
Yeah, so you have to
period
just take care
maximum.
that
Okay.
these resilience and the limit are set, and
Restart and
restart we keep it as default. Maximum restarting of the services is 3 times only, so we don't touch the default properties. Okay, so nothing to do at the domain level basically when you talk about high availability. You have to just
okay.
check the properties. That's what it is. Now, if you talk about the application service level, how to configure failover. That means, see, at the application service level, again, all the three properties, resilience, restart, recovery, all these three should happen, right?
Yes.
Resilience is already set in the properties, default 180 seconds. If it is not set, means it will be set whenever you create an application service, it will 180-second will be set as default resilience. If you want to change it, increase it, you can increase it. That is known that you will be setting the resilience parameters there.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Recovery, we already studied that application services recovery happens automatically if you set your failover configuration. If you do
Hello.
your failover configuration right, it will take care of
Uh-huh.
restart and recovery both. Agreed?
Yes.
Because we set up the backup nodes, it will automatically fail over, restart, and recover whatever is needed based on the
Okay.
recovery state of operation.
Yes.
Okay, so failover configuration, if you want to do, what you have to do first, every service which you are having should have a backup node. I have already told this, right? So you should
Yes.
have a backup node. Without a backup node, your high availability or your failover, which is the very important part of high availability, doesn't work. So for every service, you have to have a backup node. Okay, every application service, whether it's a data quality service or it's a power center service, you have to have a backup node for that. Even for the system
Yes.
services, have a backup node created for all of them. Then only your high availability will work. Second thing which you have to verify when you are doing configuration is verify that your nodes, all your nodes, are having the
Uh-huh.
access
Yes.
to the runtime files. What are the runtime files? Runtime files means this folder
Oh,
actually. The runtime folder.
okay.
Every time while running, we are accessing this infra shared, right? This is
Yes.
inside this. Actually,
All this.
runtime files are parameter files, source files, target files, storage, lookup files, cache, all these
Gosh.
folders you should have access to.
Okay.
Means whichever node is, if you are enabling a node which doesn't have access to this folder, then your high availability won't work. Why? Because it won't be able to access the recovery files. Okay.
Okay.
So, or other informations it won't be able to access. So all your runtime files should be accessible. Okay, and also you should your wherever you are doing this, when you are doing this configuration, also ensure that your state of operation runtime files means your source files, target files, parameter files, lookup files, cache files, those which are used for runtime running an object, right? So when your
Yes.
integration service is getting failed over to another node, when it will run in another node, it will use these folders. These are runtime folders, runtime files, right? Your session will
Yes.
use it. If you don't have access, your workflow will fail. That's the reason why we should ensure. Also, another point in the checklist is your state of operation files
Mhm.
and your process state of operation files, state information. Okay, I'll tell you what is process state information. Now, wherever you are keeping it, that folder should be accessible. Like we don't know, inside the server in some bin folder or Tomcat folder, the state of operations are saved. Okay,
Okay.
so that folder should be accessible. And what do you mean by process state information? So here, when I was talking about recovery, I told you that each of these services are having their own state of operation files, right? Now,
Yes.
one integration service can handle multiple processes. One integration service can handle multiple processes. How? I'll tell you. Let me just go here. What is happening? I'll go to integration service. I'll go to processes. Here at the top, you see
Mhm.
process state. This is one process which is running, right?
Yes.
Now, can multiple processes run on this one integration service? Yes, one integration service can have multiple processes. When, in which situations? Let us say you are running on a Unix box,
Mhm.
okay, and you are
Okay.
running two different jobs from two different OS profiles. Just,
Okay.
just suppose you are running two different jobs from same integration service, two different OS profiles, operating system profiles. In Unix, we just like in Windows, we have multiple users. In Unix, we have multiple operating system profiles, OS profiles. So you can run jobs from multiple OS profiles, right? So if you have that, then two processes will be running. Both processes will have their own runtime folders. Okay. In
Okay.
those cases, the status of these processes, which process was running, which node it was using, which process was disabled, which node it was running on, all those details will be saved in a kind of a state of operation file, but we tell it as a process state information file. Okay, which
Okay.
process was in which state will be stored in one file, just like state of operation. So that is basically for that is a kind of a recovery file for your just like state of operation for your integration service. We have
Mhm.
a process of information, process state information file as well. So that's what I was saying, that when you're configuring, ensure that wherever that file is, it will be in the same folder, I think, where we have the state of operation. So your state of operations file should be accessible. Okay, so these three things we have to ensure when you
Mhm.
are configuring the failover or the restarting or the high availability for your application services. Along with it, resilience and recovery will resilience, you have to set the properties. Recovery will automatically take care. It will take care when you set the failover information like this.
Okay.
This much thing you need to configure for high availability. Nothing else. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct paths. Paths should have access. Runtime folders should have access. Your
Access.
state of operation and the process state file should have access. That folder should have access. You should always
Mhm.
create the backup nodes for all the services. That will ensure that you
Okay.
are having the high availability. Right?
High
Now, what
availability.
about node configuration for restart? See, node configuration for resilience is already their default.
Yes.
Node 90-second is default, cannot be configured. There's no configuration for resilience
Node.
of a
For
node,
node resilience.
right? You
Yes.
remember, node is
Yes.
default.
Yes.
Hmm. So for node, we need to configure the restart. I think we discussed it, but just to
Yes.
point it
We
out
discuss.
again. Yeah. So node restarting means we have to set up the services. We haven't seen it, but I think we discussed that we have to set up the services so that whenever the node starts, the services should
The
start
services
automatically.
should start.
We should not
Yes.
forget it, because we should not forget this, because even if your services, let us say your node has gone down, okay,
Mm-hmm.
your services has shifted to, you have brought up another node, you made another node as a gateway, or you have, in place of that node, you have failed over all your services to another node, you brought up another node. Now in that node, automatically informatic, as soon as that node comes up, your informatica service should start. Now in your current systems, when you switch off your laptop and switch on, what happens? The informatica service automatically starts, or you have to every time go manually and start in your personal system where you installed informatica. Now what if you shut down today, tomorrow you switch on, does it automatically start?
No, we should manually go on.
You do it manually every day?
Installation.
Like,
Installation we don't do. We
no,
just log in.
not installation. No. I'm talking about, you installed informatica in your personal system in your laptop,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You installed for this course, you have installed it in your personal
Yes.
system, right?
Yes. Yes.
Now in your laptop, you shut down that laptop, you start it
Uh-huh.
again. Does
Okay.
informatica service automatically start running, or it is you have to go and manually run it from the task manager?
It automatically starts.
Yeah, so that's what, that
Okay.
configuration should be there. In all the systems it doesn't start. See, if we, our systems are configured in that way, right? So your servers, your node should also be configured in that way. Now if I talk about a Windows system, my
Uh-huh.
service, I go to the informatica service, this is my node, right? So this is my
Yes.
main informatica service, it is running, right?
Yes.
Go to open services, I'll open to that service window, control panel.
Mm-hmm.
Let us see the details. Oh, sorry, it didn't open. Go to details. It opened. Hmm. Informatica. Startup type, automatic. You can see
Automatic. Yes.
for some services, startup type is manual. You can see. So in our node, whichever nodes we are configuring for backup, or primary node or backup node, whatever nodes which we
Should be
are a
auto.
part of our high available informatica architecture, in
Mm-hmm.
all of them, this service should automatically restart. So if it is a Windows system, I can show you here in the properties, we have to set it startup type automatic. It should not be manual. Okay.
Okay.
Means in this system, my service should automatically start. Similarly, from a big server point of view, if you think, if something goes down and comes up in another node, that Informatica service should automatically start there if that
Automatically
node
start.
is brought up.
Yes.
Yeah. Then only you will achieve a high availability. Else, if your services are manual, that means service will not come up. Even though you did so much of hard work, your system did so much of hard work to identify the backup node and elect a backup master gateway, and then shift your services there. It did everything, but it could not start the service. Then nothing, everything goes in vain. Again, a manual intervention is needed. That is why this has to be a very key point, that whenever you are configuring from a node point of view, we should ensure that we set up the Informatica services to start automatically. Whenever the node is starting. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I think I'm done with the high availability, unless until if you have any questions. Then we'll move ahead and we'll talk about, I think we already spoke about grid systems, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, let me see what we spoke about grid. Okay, we had an introduction of grid. I think while talking about nodes, we had an introduction of grid. I told you that what a grid is. That means I introduced grid, but we'll go to a bit more details of grid.